Hey everybody, welcome back to Keeping It Real with Tiff and Carl. I'm Carl Rabin,
I'm Tiff Salcedo.
and you should have heard our conversation.
No, you shouldn't
Ooh.
have. That was a private conversation. Nobody should have heard that conversation.
But the conversation was, yeah, that's one of the reasons why we have this podcast so we can talk offline too. So yeah, that's the way we connect. So very cool.
For
So
a small
we
subscription, I'm gonna say for a small subscription fee of $69.99, you can get the bloopers.
yeah, we have a Patreon with all of our bloopers. Yes, absolutely.
That's where the
Subscribe,
real
like and
magic
subscribe.
happens. That's where the real magic happens. Uh, anyways,
So last week we were spending some time talking about the idea of values and how to promote values and what to do. And it got me thinking, Tiff, is when we are, like you mentioned, organizational values sometimes are difficult to control and to manage, especially if you're not in senior leadership. It's that 80% systems, 20% people conflict that we talked about. But what if you're a middle manager? What if you're somebody who has a team, a unit, or maybe a few units, or a bureau in the state, or a division for the county? And one of the things I always think about is when something new comes through, or initiative comes through, or an idea comes through, what do we always say? Oh, let's see what they say above us. Let's see what the higher ups say. All county letters come. What's our first response? We're looking up to see what leadership says. And that is a lot of times the culture of being in a government organization. But and what's the alternative of if you don't like the values, go somewhere else? What if you have somebody, Tiff, who's like, I got 19 in and I'm a manager and I'm not satisfied with how our organization runs, but I got that year. I got that year. I got, get that retirement. Or I just got to leadership. I want to establish myself here for a while. And even if I'm looking somewhere else, everyone's, I think stats 55% of people are looking for their next job in the job that they're in. Right. So that's something that a lot of people that drives them to leave. Right. But at the same time, what do I do to try to improve the situation I'm in right now if leaving isn't necessarily the best option? And so it just got me thinking about the idea of using the model of the sphere of influence, right? And the sphere of influence is basically three um, spheres, for lack of a better term, right? And and they're layered within each other. And one of them is control. The next one is influence. And then the last one is concern, or basically things out of your control. And what the model talks about is the things that we can control are, ourselves and what we have direct control over, the functions of the team, the expectations, or our work habits, the way we carry ourselves, our own values, the values of our team or whatnot. Then we have influence. And the influence is how do we influence other people? How are we, what we're doing, influencing other people? How the words that we say, the actions that we take, what sway do we have, right? What sway do we have with leadership, with other units? How do we influence people to see us as somebody who is a valued contributor? And then that last circle is the concern, which is basically things that are out of your control and things that you cannot control, which are basically the actions of other people. And so that it's just a really good model to think about when we are engaging with folks. And I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on that sphere of influence, Tiff, and how do you use it?
so there's a couple of thoughts here. When we talked about values, I said if you don't align with values, maybe you can go work somewhere else. That's a little bit simple. I'll just acknowledge that's not the only option, right? It's not the only option, but it is a option. I always start kind of like with this three things. Can I change it? If I can change it, this is going to connect to the sphere of influence here. Can I change it? If I can't change it, can I live with it? If I live with it, that means I'm not resentful. It means I've accepted it for what it is and I just move through it. Or do I leave it? That's the third option that I look for. So I, when I think of the sphere of influence, I'm thinking about how do I change it? So I use a little bit of different language because I'm all about the BMW, the blaming, moaning, and whining. And that's where I think the circle of concern is. I'm going to start on the outside and kind of work my way to the center. On the outside, you have all of these things that you have zero control over. You can't change them. It's just what is. It's the reality that you're living in. Um, and a lot of people spend tons and tons of time, effort, and energy in that space of concern, that circle of concern. And really, when I think about it, it's a place of judgment or wishing that your reality would be different. And we spend a lot of time in the drama triangle in that circle of concern in the BMW, blaming, moaning, and whining, and complaining about things that are not going to change. And the more we complain about it, the more that we are frustrated by it, the more it impacts like our well-being because it's like yelling at the hurricane, stop hurricane, quit, quit trying to blow my house down. Like no hurricane ever has been like, oh, my bad. I'll move on to the next place. So it's comfortable in that sphere of concern or the circle of concern. A lot of people are comfortable there because they don't have to take any ownership or accountability. It's always somebody else's fault. Hence the drama triangle. All right. I like to think of the influence, the next circle in of how you shape or how you show up in a system. So if I can't control other people's behavior, and I think that this is something that all of us probably should whisper out as a mantra to just remember, I cannot change anybody else's behavior. I cannot change how somebody thinks, how they act, what they do, but I can influence it through my behaviors. This is part of like what we're hoping to do on the podcast. I'm hoping to have the influence to break the cycle of trauma and leadership and going to work and not feeling safe and comfortable and feeling good about your contribution to the universe. That's like what influence I'm hoping to have, but I can't change your behavior. And so if I really am thinking about how do I increase my influence, I have to think about things like how am I working on creating good relationships? I might be thinking about how am I contributing to our team's dynamics? How am I contributing to our processes? What conversations am I having or not having? All of that is where I have influence. And so the center of that circle is where we have, like you mentioned, the control, where it's 100% like what I can do and what I don't do. And so in that center of control, this is my behavior, my responses, my effort, my mindset. The most powerful of these circles, even though it's the smallest one, I think this is where emotional intelligence lives. This for me is where emotional intelligence lives. And so when I think about where do I have control? I can't control what you say to me. I can control how I respond to it. I can't control what decisions the state makes, but I can control like how I participate in the development of that process. I can't control, the way that my boss leads me, but I can have a conversation and let them know how to get the best out of me. And again, maybe influence the way that our relationship moves forward. Now, is that successful all the time? No, some people are not influenced. Some people are very stuck in the way that they do things and the way that they think and the way that they operate. And this is where you try to change it. If you can't change it, you live with it. Maybe you just accept it for what it is. And if you can't do that, then the only other option is to leave. So that's the way I use the circles of influence there. What about you, Carl? How do you use this? Unmute, unmute, unmute. There you go.
When we have those conversations about what people are frustrated by, and we hear that a lot. And you hear about, well, we have to do these regs. We have to have, we want to have good customer service, but we can only be on the phone for 5 minutes, right? And all these things like that. And I'll share a story. about how it played out. And I was coaching a senior, like a manager 2, 3 level or manager 3 level in the state. And they were talking about how they were frustrated with the relationship they had with senior leadership, and that very often they were not as responsive as they'd like to be and not as supportive as they'd like to be. And so it was really keeping them from being able to do the work that they wanted to do. And so they were, like I said, kind of stuck at a crossroads and not sure exactly what they wanted to do. And I said, well, how is this affecting your teams? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, how is this waiting for somebody affecting your teams? And we went through it and talked about the circle of influence. While this person's waiting for that one person to respond to them, they can't control how this person's going to respond or when they're going to respond because they're waiting for them. Those 100 people that are underneath them are waiting for this person to move, who's waiting for somebody else to move.
Mhm.
Right. And so their lack of movement, their lack of being forward, not just on those specific topics, but other things that affect the daily work of their organization, because they have an organization underneath them. Right. And I said, so you're waiting for one person to give you an answer on one thing is affecting 100 people, and how? How? Well, yeah, I never thought of it that way. I said, well, those are the things you can control. You can control if you are a middle manager, if you are, or even, a leader who isn't necessarily in the decision-making process of how we do our day-to-day stuff organization wide, where can you control how your organization works? We all have organizations, right? If you are a line supervisor, your organization is your unit, right? We have unit culture. I worked in units where it completely changed. The culture was so good that other people started saying, wow, how are you guys doing it? That's influence, right? So when you have a grasp of what you can control how you talk to your staff, how they talk to their staff, the practices that we talked about, the culture. We're going to look at blind spots. We're going to ask, managers to ask other people, tell me what it is that I can support you better in, or what is it that I'm missing? Those types of conversations, regular one-on-one conversations that you can institute with your managers because you have that influence can make a difference for how they manage their staff, even if they have managers, if they have line staff. Those things make such a difference and do have nothing to do with that outer circle, right? Your concern is my manager ever going to get back to me? My control is I have 100 people looking at me for direction, and I'm frustrated because I have one person that won't get back to me. Right. So what can I do in the meantime? What can I control in the meantime? It's just like real simple. Tiff, what'd you guys do when the system went down? Because I know the system went out in Merced all the time, right? A cow stepped over a cable out in the fields and just messed up your. I'm sorry,
First
my
of all,
bad,
don't
Merced.
be
I love y'all.
disrespectful.
I love y'all, Merced. I love all about Atwater and Wilton and or what do you
Winton, Winton.
Winton. Winton. Yes,
He
yes, I
loves us
love
so much
Winton.
he can't remember our name.
I love y'all. UC Merced. Yes. All right, go ahead.
Well, first of all, our system went down sporadically because not of the cows or the trains, but because we were doing so much work, it couldn't keep up with our effectiveness. First of all, that's why. And when it went down, there would be a couple things that would happen. We would use that time to organize and clean our desks, or we would catch up on our correspondence, which was we would build relationships. We turn to each other and be like, "So, while we're waiting for the servers to get back up, what'd you do this weekend? Oh, what about this? What?" So a lot of times we used it for relationship building and tidying up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, and there are some people who they use it for relationship building every time.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, the system's down. Okay, well, girl, what'd you do this weekend? You know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or did you go
Mm-hmm.
see that Project Hail Mary? Go see Project Hail Mary. Oh, that was wonderful. Anyways, so, but just that is something that generally happens. And you have those folks who, okay, the system's down. What else can I do to manage my day? right? I got a stack of paperwork. Maybe this is the time I file, right?
Mhm.
Which can be hard because when the system goes down, what's our first response? Ah, the dang system's down. We can't get work done. It's an emotional response. We get frustrated and fight, flight, and freeze and fawn activate. And so we have different ways of dealing with that and thinking intentionally about what we can control. Okay, so the system's not working. What else is it that I can do in the meantime so that I'm caught up, that I stay on top of those things? You know,
Right.
can I tell another story, Tiff? I don't
Of
know.
course you can. I love your stories.
So I was grading papers yesterday. I teach a conflict management class for Sacramento State, and it was the last day, and people are turning in their term papers. So I told my wife I'm probably going to be at my desk or on the couch, not even real, but of waiting for these papers to come in. And because I knew that, I mean, there were some people who turned it in earlier, but it was the last day. So there was, about 10 papers that had not been done yet. And so I could have sat there all day waiting, for these papers to roll in, trickle in, 10 of them, but in the meantime, I said, okay, I know this is what I need to get done, but I can't control when people are going to turn them in. So
Hmm.
what else is it that I can do in the meantime? Well, I can, when papers come in, I will grade them. I will keep them. I will keep up the canvas. I'll get a notification that somebody submitted something. I will go back and take care of it. In the meantime, I have travel reimbursements I need to do for my work. I have updates on my website. I have other things that I can do in the meantime as I'm waiting for these papers to turn in, to roll in, and then also be able to reward myself. Hey, look, I've done an hour of work. Maybe I can play a game on Pogo or catch up on my Wordle, right? Those little things where the more structured I am, the less stressful it is, and the less unproductive I am. I'm actually more productive because I'm thinking about what is it that I can control, even if I can't control when these papers are going to get turned in and I need to have this block of time. What is it
Hmm.
else? What else can I do in those situations? So that's an example of how we can regulate ourselves when we feel like we can't necessarily control something. What is it that we can control?
Well, let me just tell you, because I go hard for my boy Sean Aker and the happiness advantage. And so one of his techniques of like reclaiming your brain, he calls it reclaiming your brain from the jerk, but I'm going to say to like pull yourselves out of the depths of your circle of concern. You got to name it to tame it. So there's like this three-step method to again reevaluate like your situation. So when you find yourself in that circle of concern, when you're in your BMW just cruising through life blaming, moaning, and whining, the first thing that you have to do is to like name the thing that's causing you stress or discomfort or whatever it is. So be very specific here. So you can't just be like, what's causing you stress, like Carl's cut. Like that's not enough. It has to be what specifically is it about that relationship, that dynamic, that whatever it is that's causing you stress. The second thing, once you've identified it, is to make a list of what you can control and what you can't control in that situation. So what are the things about that dynamic maybe that are beyond your control that you have to just accept as so in some circles we might call it noise. It's there, it exists, you find protections for it, you just can't change it, you just find different ways to deal with it. So what's the noise, what can you not control, and then what do you have control over, and then find one small thing. That's the third step. Find one small thing that's going to get you in the right direction. So I'll give a very hypothetical, allegedly. This is not a real story, but I just want to put this into context. So let's pretend I had the luxury of taking 2 weeks off of work. Isn't that luscious? Wouldn't that feel luscious to have 2 full weeks of no work? And in this time, the process at my job is that Carl is my backup worker, and Carl is supposed to be returning my phone calls while I'm gone. And I trust Carl. I believe in Carl. Unfortunately, nobody told Carl I was going to be out of the office, and so when I come back 2 weeks later, um, I have a 2 weeks worth of voicemail messages for people who are very frantic and needing urgent assistance. And let's just be honest, I am pissed. I am pissed because when Carl took his time off, when Carl was on his, you know, FMLA or whatever he was doing, I handled all of his stuff for him. And look at how he returns the favor. Look at how he treats me. Carl is so narcissistic and self-centered and da da da. This is going to be the part that goes viral, right? This is allegedly, remember,
Do not
allegedly.
clip this. Do not clip this. Yes.
Nonetheless, I might be telling myself tons of stories about how everybody did me wrong. I help everyone. Nobody ever helps me. I got all these people waiting 2 weeks for help. This is why I never go on vacation. This is why I never can do anything for myself. Self care my ass. Like I can't even go and enjoy a vacation, whatever. So I'm feeling overwhelmed. So, what am I stressed about? I'm feeling a little betrayed because I thought that we were a team. And I don't feel like I don't know enough information about what happened yet. I'm full on blame mode. But what's really causing my stress is that these people went 2 weeks without assistance, and I'm feeling really bad and guilty about that. Okay. So now I got to go to the second step. What can I control? What can't I control? I can't control that nobody returned these phone calls while I was gone. I can't control what has happened in the past. It's done, it's over with. But what can I control? Number one, I can get on top of this. I can start to respond to people now. What else can I control? I can find out more information about what happened to prevent this from happening in the future. I can have a conversation with Carl and talk to him a little bit about why I'm frustrated and what the expectations are. There's a lot of things I can control. So what's the first step? For me, the first step is I'm going to get on that phone and I'm going to start writing down messages. And I'm going to write down every call that I received in that time. Maybe the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to cross off all the duplicates, all of the people that called multiple times because nobody responded. So my 174 phone calls, we're down to 82 now. We're down to 82. And so now I'm going to say, okay, my next step is I'm going to start with the first call and I'm going to call them and I'm going to address that issue. And then as soon as I'm done with that one, I'm going to move to the next call and I'm going to give them my full attention and address that issue. And then what right after that, before you know it, I've gotten through all of my phone calls. So I'm feeling less stressed. I still haven't necessarily resolved the issue. I still have other things that I need to do in my sphere of control and my sphere of influence. So I might go have that conversation with Carl to say, "Hey, Carl, I noticed that while I was on vacation for 2 weeks, you didn't check any of my messages and return phone calls. I was under the impression that you were my backup worker and that you were going to do that in my absence. What happened?" Right? Not Carl, you jerk. You didn't return my phone calls. Who do you think you are, you selfish SOB? Beep, 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 beep. I was never in the Navy, but I do talk like a sailor. But that's not going to get us anywhere. This is where the emotional intelligence, this is the control. I got to self regulate. Even though I'm pissed, I'm frustrated, I'm disappointed, I still don't have all of the information. And so Carl may come to me and say, "You were on vacation for 2 weeks. I had no idea. And I thought that we had that intern that was going to take care of voice messages. I thought that's what our boss said at the last unit meeting, that intern that they have was doing all our voicemails for us. So I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Do you need any help right now?" And now we've resolved the issue because we had a conversation. But if I just sit in that sphere of, or I keep calling it the sphere. I think I need to go to Vegas. I think that's what Vegas might be calling me. But if I'm still in that circle, if I'm in that circle of concern and I never get out of that, we just sit there and dwell over the same issues over and over and over and over again. And it ends up leading to us feeling helpless and hopeless and blameful and all of the things that lead us to lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of drama.
Yeah. No, you're so right. And that's, you mentioned you're the type to say, Carl, you jerk. But how many people go silent?
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
people? Okay, well, Carl will
Yeah.
take care of me. You know what? I
I'll
take care
never
of
talk
Carl
to you
every
again.
time. How much do I cover for him? And I help him out when he's got to go pick up his daughter and all these other things like that, where we get quiet and we get
Yeah.
resentful and we build up not just organizational silos, but personal silos where we protect ourselves. Why? Because our brain does not want to deal with that negativity when we don't want to feel duped. And if somebody isn't helping us the way that we help them, we feel like suckers. Or at least that's my challenge, right? My challenge is,
Mhm.
well, I do this for everyone else. Why don't they do it for me? And you know what? I'm not going to get fooled like that again. I'm not going to get taken advantage
Right.
of. This is what my brain is doing when really it's just a matter of, did I express my needs? Did I express what it is that I'd like to see people, do? And no, it's I just assume that you should do this, right? I should on them.
Right.
You ever should on anybody, Tiff,
You
right?
should, we should shit on people all the time.
You should know this. You've been here as long as I have. You should
Yeah.
already know the regs, right? You've been working here 5 years. You should know how we get stuff done. Just because you do it different. I mean, there's so many different shoulds that affect people, and we keep mental checks of all those things that people do that they don't do them like us. And because of that, they're wrong, they're bad, they don't like us, they're evil, they're out to get us, because our brain will catastrophize in a minute. We need to be able to stop and think about, like you said, let me check with Carl to see what happened, as opposed to, I already know what happened. I made the
Yeah.
story in my head before I even walked to talk to Carl. So every one of my questions or statements that I have is already pointed towards the fact that Carl is an evil person, right? Or that, that's something I've really thought about. People don't live up to my standards, but that those are my standards. And guess what? I don't live up to some people's standards either. And that's a
Mhm.
conversation to have with yourself, right? What are your standards and what do you stand for? And how do we know that other people live 100% to your standards? Which um, spoiler alert, nobody lives up to your standards in the same way. Right?
Right.
So that's the thing to think about with that. What do I control? I control how I move. What I can't control is how other people move. So what do I do? I influence,
Mhm.
right? How do I have that conversation with folks? Hey, look, this is how I do things. When I'm gone, if you could do them in that way, or if you could find a way to do them similarly, that way when I come back, it's just a seamless transition. Expectations. Expectations are everything. If we
Mhm.
don't have expectations, people don't know what we're thinking about them. You can't hold somebody to an agreement or an expectation that they haven't already agreed to. So how you have to verbalize it or document it and just have those conversations. Hey, look, while I'm gone, I have these things going on. This is the way that I like to organize them and make that specific. Now, if when I'm gone, if you want to answer the phone calls, the way that you do them, what is it that I should be looking for? Right? Just to ask that question. It's a 5 minute conversation. But a lot of people, we play it up in our head like it's going to be adversarial and people are going to tell us that they do something different, which means that either they're doing something wrong or are we doing something wrong when it's not even about being wrong. It's just about being different,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so what we can control is our own reactions to other people. We cannot control the actions of other people. We can control how we react to other people. That's such
Right.
a powerful thing. And there's different spheres, Tiff. And I got this information from Commodot.com, and I'll put the link into the the course the episode description, but it talks about how we use the sphere of control, the sphere of influence, right? And we have different iterations of the sphere, right? You have people who are the complainers, where it's not concentric circles, right? They have a little bit of control, even less influence, and big concerns. So they're so worried about the concerns or the things that they can't control that it gets in the way of them being able to get their work done. Like I told you about that manager, so worried about the actions of their boss that it gets in the way of how they work with all those people underneath them, right? Then you have the individual contributor whose sphere is kind of small, right?
Mhm.
It's what I can control. Maybe I influence a little bit, the concerns, but they're not the global thoughts of like a manager, or especially as you further you go up, the more control you have. And so because you have more control, you're as a manager, you are busy making sure that the ship's running smoothly. So you're focusing on what you can control. Maybe you don't influence a whole lot. And the other concerns are out of your mindset because you have so much that you have to take care of. Right. And so finding that perfect balance of those concentric circles of control influence and concern, and recognizing that what we care about that we can't control is there, like you said, naming it, and then recognizing what can I control in the meantime, and how do I take the steps to manage that. So just thinking about those different spheres, Tiff, what are your, what do you see? I mean, we talk about the drama triangle, right? I mean, just think about the drama triangle. It's all about that, the complainer, where so many concerns or so much time is spent on concerns that they don't get their work done, or they don't, manage their relationships.
Yeah. I just there's so much power in just doing what you can with what you have, right? And I think so much time is wasted in people wishing for perfect circumstances. I think that's where the concern is at. Like, I'll do better when we're fully staffed. I'll do better when we have enough resources. I'll do better when my boss respects me. And the reality is those things may never happen in this lifetime, Like, so if you sit there and wait to be effective or wait to be significant until the conditions are right, you will probably be waiting forever and always. And so this is where you have to do the best you can with what you have. I think that's what that circle of control is all about. What can I do in with what I have? Maybe it's not ideal, maybe it's not what I hope for, but it's what is. And so I can be effective in here. Maybe I don't like the way that you respond to me, and I can't control that, right? And so if I go to the circle of concern, I'll be like, oh, that Carl, he just interrupts me all of the time, allegedly. He just doesn't respect me. It's probably because I'm a woman, right? Or it's probably because of, and then I insert whatever story I made up about Carl that probably isn't true. So that's if I choose that circle of concern. I'm complaining and blaming and just it's all Carl's fault. Or let's go to like the control. I can't control that Carl interrupts me, but I don't have to like get into a power struggle with him. Carl doesn't interrupt me, for the record. I just want to throw that out there. I want to not to besmirch your name, Carl. So if I say, okay, but like I can't control that Carl
Was
interrupts
that
me, but
what
what I
did you say? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
shut your mouth. Um, so, so if I'm like in my circle of control, mine's now a sphere. I've made it 3D. So now I'm in my circle of control. I can't control how he responds to me or how he interrupts me. But what I can control is how I choose to show up in that moment. So do I talk over him? Do I politely say, Carl, could you let me finish this thought? I'd love to hear what you have to say. But can I just get this out real quick? Or do I say, Carl, interrupt me one more time? you know like how do I show up in that moment? For those of you who are listening, I made some very aggressive gestures in his direction. And so that's what's within my control. I can let it frustrate me. I can like control my frustration and still show up as a professional. Now, where do I have influence? This is where, after the fact, after the moment, I can go have that conversation with Carl to say, hey, I'm noticing a pattern that a lot of times when we're in meetings, I'm a mid sentence and you jump in and start talking over me. And it makes me feel like you don't respect what I have to say. I'm wondering if there is a way that you could let me finish my thought before you share what you're thinking, because both are important to me. Now I'm influencing, right? He could say, F off, Tiff. You don't have anything good to say. You're just a stupid woman. And you should be at the house making bread right now and taking care of 20 kids. Maybe that's what Carl's attitude would be. Not you, Carl. I'm talking about the other Carl. Um, and that I can't change that, right? But now where I have influence is to really try to shape that relationship to say, well, Carl, I know maybe you think that's where I should be, but I'm here. And so while we're here, let's set some agreements about how we're going to engage with each other. Because I want you to finish it's important for me for you to finish your thoughts. It's equally important for me to be able to get my thoughts out. So I'm wondering what we can do to figure that out. So I don't have to match his energy. And that's where I have influence. That's where I show up as a person of integrity, a person of, um, you know, like I'm setting the example, even if Carl chooses not to follow it. After a while, Carl's going to realize, you know what? She's not going to give in. She's not going to change. She's not going to get excited and fight with me, which is maybe what he's hoping for so that he can stay in his bubble. I might influence his behavior to say, "Oh, She was really respectful to me. Maybe I should return the favor. Now, can I control that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But can I still try to influence it? Of course I can. I do have control over that part of it. So it how you react says more about you than it does about the other person.
And Tiff, as we wrap up, I have some questions this time that I
I
would
love
like
it.
to share with everyone. First, we've talked about how we respond to other people. One of those things where we talk about with the senior leaders, or as this is a leadership podcast as much as anything else, one of the things to think about is the amount of control that you have, the amount of influence that you have. You really do make a difference. And not even just necessarily leaders, but just case managers. I mean, if you have a badge, you have access to decision making that people who come to you for services do not have. You have that type of influence on them. And so the question is for leaders, for folks who work with other people, right? What is it that you control? What is it that you are controlling? Do you have an idea of how people should talk to you, how people should show up, how people should dress? And guess what? We all do, because we all have biases, we all have preferences, right? Recognize, what is it that you're trying to control? What is it that what are some things that are important to me and how I interact with other people? The second question is, what is the importance of those things towards what we are trying to accomplish? Right? There's something called the ad hominem fallacy, Tiff,
Mhm.
which is, I don't like you, or yeah, you're saying all the right things, but I don't know if I like you because you're a Dodger fan, or at least you have a dog named Dodger, which it's kind of a slant, right? Or I don't like you because or I'm not jiving with you because your hair is purple, right? So that's called an ad hominem fallacy, where we look at personal characteristics or things that have nothing to do with the situation and make judgments on people's competency or ability to carry out what it is we need for them to carry out, just based off of stuff that has nothing to do with anything. So, what are we trying to control? And how important is it to the overall goal of what we're trying to accomplish? Those things are really important when we think, okay, so yeah, this person has purple hair, but that's just that's not going to affect the way that they answer the phones, right? And they're in a call center, and so, or they're interacting with people in the community. People have how many different colors hairs? People have mohawks, right? I mean, who cares,
Mhm.
right? I mean, we have protections in 17 states in this country protecting how people can wear their hair, right? And it's mostly for protective hairstyles like braids and afros and dreadlocks and things like that. But then it's also, if I want to put a rainbow in my head and walk around, or if I want to wear long hair and I'm offending those people who are taught long hair, don't wear long hair. If I want to show my tattoos, whatever it is, how is that getting away? If it offends us, or if we're trying to control that, what does it have to do with the overall goal, right? And then we can exert influence based off that, right? At the end of the day, hey, look, when I worked for the bank, they told me on day one, you probably want to cover up your tattoos in your arms, just because there's some people who, when we're interacting with them, they may look at you different, and it's not fair and it's not cool. But this is something that might affect your level of effectiveness. So that was something I had to take into account,
Mhm.
right? But and we have some non-negotiables sometimes. Different places, punctuality is key. What if you work in a place where you're open 10 hours and you just got to work 8 hours there, and so everyone comes in at 9, but this person comes in at 9:30 because it works for their schedule better. And it might be frustrating to you because they do that. Or what if you have the option to work from home, and some people work from home 2 days a week and somebody else decides they want to work from home 4 days a week? Well, what's wrong with them? Why aren't they doing it like everyone else? What is it that you're trying to control, and how important is it to you? If you can justify it, well, it's important that you come in at least 2 days because we have one as a staff meeting and one where we're sharing information. Okay, so that's legitimate. That's a converse. That's a That's a conversation to have where you can exert the necessary control. But if it's not something that's working towards the overall mission or accomplishment, if it's just a personal preference, if it's opinion, right? First of all, you have the right to your own opinion, but you don't have the right to your own facts, right? So, and the facts show up in how we work together. And sometimes the facts show up in this manager does not like me, does not support me because I might have a different lifestyle than them, or I might choose to, express myself in different ways. And that's completely subjective, it's completely opinionated, and it will affect the morale of your team. So for my managers out there, for my folks who have influence over other people, what is it that I'm trying to control? And what is the importance of that towards the overall mission? And if it's legitimate, you can come up with a logical reason for it. If it's not legitimate, it's just because that's what I like. That's what my parents taught me, or that's how it was when I came into the county, right? I've been here 20 years, just the way Muhammad Ali said, if I'm the same man at 52 as I was at 22, I've wasted 30 years of my life, right? Same with organizations. Get with the program, y'all. Get with the program.
So all of this boils down to, for me, worry about yourself.
Yes.
don't don't have an opinion where you don't have responsibility. This is not to say, friends, that we're going to ignore the things that are not going well. The turning a blind eye to the areas of concern is absolutely not what we're suggesting, recommending. Like, look at those areas of concern and then get into your circles of control and get into your circles of influence. If I can't change it, what can I do? Where do I have power? And how can I influence others through my actions, through my behaviors, through my mood, through my energy to really move towards a more positive outcome? Because blaming, moaning, and whining and complaining and all of the stuff that we do in that BMW behavior doesn't do much except for make us emotionally exhausted. And so we
And
like we're here for a short time. What is it? We're not here for a
here for
long
a
time.
good
We're here for
time.
a good
Yeah,
time. We're here for a
that's
good
right.
time. So step into your power. Step
And
into
can
your
I tell
power.
you, as we end this, Tiff, I don't like BMWs anyway. I'm a Mercedes guy. So with that being said, think about what you can control and worry about yourself. And until next
Yeah,
time, I'm Carl.
I'm Tiff. Keeping it real.
Let's keep it real. Let's keep it real, real. Vroom, vroom. All right.